Hello and welcome to episode 17 of Mediocre Military Modeling. And today we're going to keep up with our Vietnam War theme. Last episode we looked at the M50A1 Patton, and today we're going to look at a very interesting vehicle. This is the M50A1 Ontos, also of the United States Marine Corps. If you remember, if you watched the last episode, I did the Patton tank as a Marine Corps tank. And the Ontos here, this was a strictly U.S. Marines vehicle. Very interesting. I believe Ontos is Greek for, I think, the thing. This was originally developed, I believe, in the 50s as a light tank destroyer. The Army ended up passing on it, and then the Marines kind of scooped it up to supplement their abilities, needing a light tank destroyer. It didn't see a ton of use. It saw a little bit of use, I think, in the intervention in the Dominican Republic, I believe, or maybe Haiti. I think it was in the 60s. And it destroyed a French light tank. For some reason, it escaped me. An AMX 75, maybe? And then, other than that, though, it really came into its own during Vietnam, where it really wasn't used extensively as a tank destroyer. The North Vietnamese, they did have armor and tanks, but there wasn't a lot of tank combat going on in that war, especially with the jungles. So it really wasn't used in the role it was intended for in Vietnam, but it was used as fire support for infantry. So if you have enemy positions heavily bunkered or fortified in a building, for example, you'd roll up one of these guys, and apparently from everything I read, these were quite terrifying to the North Vietnamese. Even if they knew one of these was in position ready to fire, they would actually flee the building or fortification, because apparently these were quite devastating as fire support. 50 caliber machine gun right here, and then it has these 6 recoilless rifles, very powerful. Recoilless rifles are interesting because, well, as you can see by the name, they're recoilless, so you can actually mount them on very light vehicles or very light platforms. Generally, you would need something heavy to counter the recoil. Else, if these did have normal recoil, when it fired, the whole thing would fly back. The downside of the recoilless rifles, though, is all the recoil comes out of the back here, so anyone standing behind this thing would be pretty much dead once it fired. Another kind of design flaw of this, the Ontos, was to reload these, you actually had to exit the vehicle, exposing yourself. So, not really great for sustained operations. Once you fired all 6 of these, you would want to retreat to a safe area. Although these are armored, the armor was fairly light, so it was effective against light arms, but against like a tank round or a cannon shell or maybe even very heavy machine gun rounds, it was somewhat vulnerable here. So interesting vehicle. This kit here itself, it is Academy kit, but I believe this is just using the molds from an older, I forget what the SK or something, I don't know, but it's using the molds from an older kit, rebranded with Academy. Affordability of this kit is sometimes kind of all over the place. I didn't pay much for this. I think I got this actually off eBay, and I think I paid about 30 bucks for it, but sometimes you can find it cheaper, sometimes more expensive. It pops up from time to time on Amazon, so I don't know if this is still in production or not, but yeah, the price can be reasonable to not reasonable, depending on supply at any given moment. So, like, I got this a few months ago, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, when I actually picked this up off eBay and put it together. But at the time I got it, it wasn't available on places like Amazon, and even I think some certain sites like Sprue Brothers, I don't think there were any available there. But interesting kit. So if you remember in the last video on the Patton, I talked about trouble with colors and finding a appropriate color for U.S. Marine vehicles in Vietnam. And I finally came to this color from AK. It is the United States Marine Corps green, FS 3495, and I used this. And on the Patton, for whatever reason, it turned out too light. Maybe I did too much. Maybe I did too much like lightning afterwards. I think on this machine it turned out just about perfect. It looks really good. This is exactly the color I was kind of looking for and expecting. I didn't do a whole lot of weathering on this machine. As you can see here, tracks are a little bit, I dust up. These are rubber band tracks, but they look fine. But yeah, I did not do much weathering on this machine at all. It almost looks like it, well, a lot of my vehicles I don't do a lot of weathering. This guy doesn't really look like it's been fighting in the jungles. It looks like it maybe just arrived in Vietnam, so that's fine. But yeah, I really like this. This is an interesting subject matter, and it's small. It doesn't take up a lot of space on the shelf, so if you're looking to do something a little bit different as far as armor, you're tired of doing tanks, this is an interesting machine to put together. It was used, like I said, it was used a lot in Vietnam, so it does have some combat history behind it. It's just a really cool build. It was slightly more complicated, I wouldn't say, because a lot of these parts are small, and like putting together the recoilless rifles, I wouldn't recommend this for like a beginner. But if you have like intermediary skills, it shouldn't be too much trouble. I mean, I'm not a pro at this, and I didn't really have much trouble putting it together. This kit went together fine. I didn't have any problems with fit or anything. The only place I had a little bit of trouble was mounting the recoilless rifles, and it more or less looks good, although if you can see over here, it's not quite 100% symmetrical. There's a little bit more gap here. This side looks correct. This side a little bit, it's a little off if you kind of take time and like look at it. I think this should be a little lower. I don't know, it's just not lining up perfectly. I tried to correct it a bit, but that's about as good as I could get it. It's not terrible, but it is slightly off. But other than the alignment of all the recoilless rifles there, it looks pretty good. I think this turned out really nice. So yeah, interesting vehicle, interesting subject matter. It's really cool, pretty cool kit to put together if you're doing something a little bit different. So that's it on my M50A1 Ontos. The kit itself, 1 to 3 stars. The kit's good, but I'm going to give it 2 just because availability and price is a little bit weird and all over the place. And I don't know what it goes for right now. Maybe it's more available and the price is low, or maybe it's not. I don't know. But I'm just going to give this a 2 just because at certain times it might be a little bit hard to find, or the price might be wonky. At least that was my experience. It might be different now, or your experience may be different. So as for the job I did on this machine, I give 3 ratings here. The worst is a artistically inclined 5th grader, could do better. Second is that good old college try. And lastly is certified mediocre. And other than the lack of weathering I did on this, and the alignments not being perfectly symmetrical, but close, I am going to give myself, I'm still thinking certified mediocre. I don't think this issue is bad enough to knock it down a point, but it's barely certified mediocre. It's certified. We got certified mediocre, but just barely. But I think I did a decent job on this kit, and it's cool. It's a little bit different. It looks different, and I have this guy. It's next to my other Vietnam era vehicle, so it's next to the Patton and an M113 that we'll look at a bit later. So cool vehicle, the M50A1 Ontos. Pick it up, build it if you get the chance, and then we'll see you in the next episode.